knowing your purpose, knowing what you're here for. And if you're on purpose, it tends to diminish the burnout. Burnout comes is a state that comes from being frustrated, not seeing results from your work, or second guessing that you're even doing the right kind of work.
Mhm. Welcome back, and thank you for your support and for tuning in. I'm thrilled to announce my guest today. He is a distinguished businessman, faithful servant of the Lord, and U.S. Senator, Mr. Ted Budd. Welcome, Senator Budd.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being with me here today. How are you?
I'm great. Good to talk to somebody from Davie County. So, yeah,
Likewise, likewise.
yeah. There's not a lot of us out there, but we do punch above our weight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm incredibly grateful for you to share your time with us and to share your experiences, not just with me, but with everyone else who's watching this as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to the discussion.
So, Senator Budd, one fascinating aspect of your background was your upbringing in a chicken farm, where you learn the value of hard work, especially at an early age. It resonated with me a little because I used to work at a chicken farm with my aunt, and when I was in elementary school, and we used to have to go in and do all that. So it's pretty cool that.
I think chicken farms, top and tobacco, a lot of these things in agriculture have made a lot of folks either preachers or politicians. The chairman of the House Financial Services, Jeb Hinserling, who's from Texas, he said there was nothing as beautiful as his chicken farm in his rearview mirror.
Yeah.
So it's tough work, but I appreciate that work when I'm back on. And it was the farm next to us. We actually bought that farm in the early 1980s. I say we. I give all the credit to my parents for this. They were growing the farm in operation, and I was a young kid being raised there off Yadkin Valley Road. But it was a wonderful place, wonderful environment to grow up in, and have an agriculture as a background.
Can you describe your journey from that to owning a gun store and then entering into the field of politics now?
Yeah, so went to a little small school in Winston and then Davie High School. And after graduating in 90, I went to App State, and I think we called it Appalachian State back then. But great 4 years there. Went on a mission trip, and that was in 1991 to Moscow and Kiev and Leningrad, which was changing its name to St. Petersburg. Met a wonderful young lady there, and she was actually from West Virginia. And we ended up getting married, and our first home was in Dallas, Texas, at Dallas Theological Seminary. So really, we went there for our master's in Christian education together, and then came back, worked in our family business, which was janitorial, landscaping, unarmed security guard. Came back to that family farm, lived there while doing the work over closer to Winston. And after several years, kind of went out on my own as an entrepreneur. Found a bankrupt, closed indoor gun range in Rural Hall, so on the north side of Winston, to acquire. Is actually the Winston Police Department. It came to me and asked if we would open this for them to use. So I had only one customer. And they later encouraged me, a member of the training captain, saying, never underestimate the need of the public to have a safe place to shoot. So it was great to have what would soon be a profitable business,
Yeah.
and a growing business, and be, have my own thing. But also have a lot of that experience that I got at the kitchen table growing up in a family of entrepreneurs. It was hugely helpful. I have wonderful parents, wonderful siblings. And so that was a great environment to learn from. Whether it's the ag background or the business background, and now owning a gun store was great. And then opening it to the larger public, not just the local police department. So still have that today, 14 years later. I have a wonderful team. It was 2016. There was a redraw of the congressional districts. And so I decided to put my name on the ballot, drove to Raleigh. A friend from Davie County that I'd gone to high school with had worked for the White House. So he was the one that really understood politics, and he told me, you should run. There'll be 5 people that run. It'll be easy. And it turns out there were 17 people that signed up to run. I was like, that's crazy. How can I win 17-way primary? And we just found out, I decided to go back to work the next day on Monday, but we ended up putting a great team together, knocking a lot of doors, raising and asking for support, asking for people's votes, and we ended up winning. So that was the pathway to Congress. And then we were there for 3 terms or 6 years, and then ran statewide in 2022 for the U.S. Senate when Senator Richard Burr retired. So that was the pathway to now, and the short version of it.
And with all that being said, I mean, you touched about the value of hard work, especially at a young age, family, and faith as well as, the building blocks for success in your life or career. I mean, how did those come into play?
Yeah, you didn't have an option. I think a lot of our in life, we kind of do what we have to, and they're going to die. You have to take care of your livestock. And so growing up in a have-to environment was good. And then, I mean, you have to take care of your customers if you're in business, or you're not going to eat. You're going to go out of business. So I think that was a good environment, which teaches a good work ethic. And plus, hardworking parents, wonderful mom and dad, good examples of older brothers working hard in front of me. So it was an awesome environment. So I would say put yourself in a have-to role.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to perform. And there's nothing that gets the mental neurons and creativity flowing when you have to accomplish a task and you don't have any options.
Doing that, you have to nurture a positive mindset or cope with, there's challenging situations. How do you cope with those without feeling overwhelmed?
I think it starts with gratitude. That's been studied. Scientists, medical practitioners, motivators, they're all looking into this and saying the root of a lot of success begins with gratitude. And I really do. First of all, gratitude to God. And I would say every day there's small things and big things you can be thankful for. Even in difficult times, you can find things to be grateful for. So I say begin every day with gratitude, realizing what you can be thankful for, and also realizing, keeping in mind every day, something that you can do better. So I would say gratitude helps with a positive mindset. Positive mindset helps with everything else.
And turning a little bit to just working in a high pressure work environment, how do you approach or recommend managing like burnout, or if you had any strategies, whether in the past or now?
So there's a few coaches named Dan Sullivan, but Dan of the Strategic Coach, who I've been a client of his for 20 some years. He teaches people the economic time system, and that is to divide your work into 3 types, or divide your time into 3 types. That is free, focus, and buffer days. So free days, focus days, buffer days. Your free days are midnight to midnight, no phones, no work. That's sort of a Sabbath type concept. Your focus days is when you know your unique ability and you actually spend 80% of your working hour days. So for easy math, we'll say a 10-hour workday. 8 hours of that is focused on what you're really called to do and you're best at. Of course, there's other things like in that 20%, just clean up work and prep work. And then the buffer day is the 3rd type of day. And that's when you're either preparing for or cleaning up from a focus day or a free day. And so I think if our work as entrepreneurs tends to turn, 24/7, there's never a break, and time tends to run together like a stew. But I think you have to intentionally divide your time up so that you can give yourself a mental break. The other is taking care of yourself physically, watching what you eat, knowing how your body responds to certain foods, and physical exercise every day. If it's as simple as a walk, a few push-ups, something to keep yourself moving. When there's a lot of desk time, a lot of screen time nowadays, a lot of car time. So I would say you got to stay physically active, and that helps. The other thing is, in addition to what we talked about in the other question about gratitude, is knowing your purpose, knowing what you're here for. And if you're on purpose, it tends to diminish the burnout. Burnout comes is a state that comes from being frustrated, not seeing results from your work, or second guessing that you're even doing the right kind of work.
Baldwin Properties, your trusted partner in commercial real estate sales, leasing, and property management in the Triad area, making a difference for almost a century.
And I try to not think about the mistakes that I've made, especially in real estate, because there's gonna be mistakes, and sometimes whenever I make one, I'm like, dang, and it's hard to not think that way or think like, oh, like I'm doing bad in this or it's not going the way I'm wanting it to go. But that's something that I'm trying to to work on every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And I would say you don't want to dwell on the mistakes,
Mhm.
but I would also say don't be afraid to capture them and journal them down, write down what you did right, what you did wrong, what will you do better next time.
Mhm.
I think it's important to don't waste a mistake. Somebody said the other day, I think they were joking about they always learn from their mistakes so they can repeat them exactly the same way the next time. So they're being cynical, and they said that as a joke. But I was like, you know what, you do want to learn from your mistake,
Mhm.
from your mistakes. That's in plural,
Mhm.
because there's always lots of mistakes, but we can always learn from them.
Mhm. And what would you say is one word of advice to get better with personal attributes for day-to-day growth?
Yeah, you want to capture your daily disciplines. I keep a mental checklist. It follows the acronym PEARLS, but it's two R's and two S's. The word PEARLS, and I just sort of invented this as a personal checklist. And I make sure if I'm falling, if I'm off the rails or if I'm not performing like I should, or you get in a funk, I'm like, what is going wrong? And so it's like an aviator's checklist. So I go, prayer, quiet time, journaling. Am I doing that? Have I been, distant from my spiritual disciplines? So that's the P. And then E is exercise. A is appetite. How's my food intake? What am I doing? And then R is relationships. Am I advancing a relationship? Am I demonstrating to others around me that I care for them?
Mhm.
The second R is read good stuff. You want to have good podcasts, good reading, good inputs, allowing good things, not bad things into my life. L is lights out on time. You need enough sleep. And then your S is schedule ahead. Don't fall into the next day. Plan your next day before intention. And then the second S, you just draw a vertical line down through it, and it's a dollar sign. And you say, "Are you taking care? Are you watching the dollars as they flow in and out of your life?" Good.
Mhm.
I try to make sure that I make good use of those and go back to them and make sure I'm taking care of those 8 things.
Mhm. So you journal every day.
I try to do, I would like to say every day. There's not a whole lot to do every single day, right?
Yeah.
I do brush my teeth, but the rest of it is like almost every day.
Mhm.
Almost every day as I'm writing something down, and even if it's brief and it's just a gratitude journal, you can go on Amazon, get a gratitude journal or something very simple. They used to call it the 5 minute journal. I'm like, hey, I can sacrifice 5 minutes, but I think it's good to get things out of your head and get things on the paper. I think it helps clarify the mind with the physical writing, not just typing into a phone, but the physical writing is helpful. So
Mhm.
that and those and I lump that first P, journal. So making sure I'm reading, listening to scripture, and that I'm in prayer and remember my Creator. Right.
Yes,
So you
sir.
don't want to distance yourself from the one.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're an automobile, you're a car, right? You don't want to forget where you came from and your purpose and how you're built and who made you. So you got to pay attention to your factory settings.
Yeah. This year I started journaling. And not every day, but I try to. And it's definitely helped me spiritually and just I don't know. Once I fixed spiritually, everything else started falling in place a little bit. So it's kind of funny
Almost
how
how
that
it's
works.
designed, isn't it? Yeah.
But in business and in politics, networks and relationships are crucial. How do you approach building meaningful connections, and what advice would you give to others in this regard?
I would say if you're doing kind of those, we kind of went through that 8 point checklist. So relationships, and people know that you're in it for more than just yourself. You don't want to like ignore yourself, but that you have a larger purpose, and you find people that are in alignment with that.
Mhm.
That's in whether it's a dating or marriage relationship. whether it's a colleague at work, you're in conjunction, kind of doing your purpose in conjunction with others. I would just say the more you're in alignment with your purpose and the more others are, the more you're going to work cohesively together on track towards similar goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would just say, you want to love those around you. And that means, that's not always just an emotional term. That is seeking others' best. So I think that's a definition for loving others well. It's just to love is to seek someone else's best.
Mm-hmm. Servant leadership is something I've been, it keeps coming up on my phone and when I do things, and I hear that word a lot, and it's something that kind of made me think of that when I was asking that question.
Well, sure. I mean, you don't want to overthink it, right? You want to reflect your Creator and your Lord and Savior in all that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say He came, to seek and to serve and to save the lost. So I would just say, let's just keep that in mind, right, as you're serving others.
Yes, sir. If effective communication is crucial in both business and politics. Can you share insights into your communication style and what has helped you over the years?
Yeah, I think I try to keep it at least 80-20, listening to talking. You're in these roles, they invite you into rooms, and they expect everybody, they just stare at you and expect you to talk. I'm like, actually, I'd rather listen because I'm constantly learning and kind of putting together my thoughts. And so I've got plenty to say, but you want to make sure, I like to treat words as a ratio or a fraction. And it's how many words are you saying to the value you're delivering? And I try to make every word a 9-pound hammer. It doesn't always work out that way, but I want to deliver as much meaning and content and power in as few words as possible. Anyway, I think a lot of that comes from your inner spirit, and I'm privileged to work on a team where people help me craft those words. But again, I'm not a constant talker. I think sometimes my family wish I would talk a little more. And sometimes you come out of these rooms, these classified rooms, and you can't talk. Yeah. So sometimes that's quite fitting. That it's not a long talker.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing I wanted to ask you was, considering your efforts to create a better future, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave for future generations, and how do you measure the impact of the work that you've done or that you're doing currently?
Yeah. Spiritually, it's well done, good and faithful servant. That's what you want to hear on the other side of eternity. But you could also quote George W. Bush, or at least to paraphrase him, he says, when he was asked about his legacy, he says, "What do I care? I'll be dead." So, there is that sense, and that I think it's good to think about not just legacy, but really through the generations. How is this impacting the generations? I'm a dad. I've got 3 children. I realize now, as they're out of the house, we're empty nesters, that they have been watching and they're still watching. And so there's a positive pressure to being a dad, to being a husband, to realize that you got a lot of eyes on you. Mm-hmm. And they're paying attention. So I would just say, don't worry as much about legacy as you worry about the people around you, and that you want to set a good example for them. And you want to create a good framework, and you want to make life easier and better for those around you. And I think the legacy will largely take care of itself if you do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
I want to say thank you, Senator Budd, for generously sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. Your journey from your upbringings to the Senate is truly inspiring, and your dedication to service and faith is a beacon of hope for all of us.
Thank you for having me, Elvis. It's been inspiring to see the next generation doing great things and creating a great platform here. So I wish you well in all that you do, and look forward to seeing you back in our great Davie County.
Likewise. Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right.
Bye.
God bless.
Bye.